Alright everyone, for this video we're going to talk a little bit about run fits. So in defensive football, all 11 players on a defense have a run defense responsibility. These are often referred to as run fits. These run fits, or the way they set up, vary depending on the defense, from team to team, from scheme, and everything. In order to have a complete defensive system to set up run fits, you need to have three things established. You need to have a front, stunt, and a coverage. The front is the basic formation the defense will line up in. The stunt is the basic movement or action by the line, or the defensive line and the linebackers. And then the coverage. While it may seem like the coverage isn't that important to run defense, it actually plays a major role in terms of where these defensive backs are going to fit against the run, as well as the linebackers. So it's very important in what coverage you choose when it comes to defending the run. There's also two basic types of run fit defenses: single gap defenses and double gap. In a single gap defense, all 11 players are responsible for only one gap, which is a space between linemen, or out here in the alley. So a gap is here and all the way out here. Double gap is when certain defenders, usually defensive linemen, are responsible for two gaps. So if I were to run a single gap defense, this nose guard right here would only be responsible for one of these A gaps, or the gaps to the sides of them. If it was a double gap, he'd actually be attacking this center head on, making reads and fighting pressure, and then trying to defend both of these gaps. So what he would do that by fighting with the center, feeling what the center's trying to do, where he's stepping, where his shoulders are going, and try to react accordingly to counter it. For this first example, we'll do single gap. So we have our front. We have a basic 3-4 front, an Oki front, 5 techniques, 0 technique. And we're going to run, for a stunt, we're going to do a strong slant. So in a strong slant, we're going to slant to the tight end side. That means the defensive line is going to slant to the gap to their left, because the strong side is to the left, marked by the tight end here. So it would look like this. All right, so that's where the defensive line is going to go. Then the linebackers and all the other defenders fall in. So again, I said for front we got a 3-4. For stunt, we have a slant strong. For coverage, for this one we'll do cover 2. Cover 2 means we're going to have 2 deep safeties. And the cornerbacks are going to cover the flats. And this plays an important role. And you'll see in a second. So now we have these other gaps here. We have this gap here, this gap, these areas out here. How is the rest of the defense going to fall in when the offense runs the ball? Because the offense is going to find those gaps. They're going to figure out which gaps are open, and this kind of area here is what's called a bubble, and attack those. So we have to make sure they get filled. For linebackers, they are going to read usually a tackle, guard, or the nearest back to them. Some also run what's called a cross key, where you key a guard to the nearest back, or you key the tackle or the tight end to the nearest back. And these linebackers are going to react off their first movement. So let's say, for example, the offense is going to run kind of off tackle to the strong side. And both backs' first steps are this way. All right? So usually the fullback, it's kind of risky to key tailbacks because they can lie a lot more than a fullback can. So let's say these two backers are keying the guards through here. If they see this fullback step, they typically step with them. All right, so you'll see most defenses do this if you look closely. Wherever these backs step, the linebackers will step with them. So if this fullback steps here, these backs are going to step this way as well. These backers also play kind of that defensive end hybrid role. Won't be doing this as much because they're more concerned about holding down the end. Now, to fill in the gaps or to make the fits, each linebacker is going to be responsible for a gap when the ball goes this way and when the ball goes the other way. So in this case, this linebacker would be responsible for the A gap near him. All right? This linebacker will take the B gap. So now we've taken care of all those interior gaps. Now, this isn't a blitz. This is just a run responsibility. So when they run, they step and attack and fill their gap. These would be the gaps that these two backers are responsible for. Now, these front 7 are occupied with being aggressive and stopping that run right away. Here's where the coverage comes into play. There's two types of defensive back run fits. There's contain or deep defenders and run force defenders. Run force, also called run support defenders, are responsible for being aggressive and coming up and stopping the run and trying to make a big impact play. In a cover two, your corners are the run force defenders because they're playing up in the flats. If you assigned players defending deep to a run support, that is a lot of ground to ask them to cover because they're backpedaling off the snap and they would have to fly up here. So corners are typically your run force defenders in cover two. So what it means is, as the defense is filling these gaps, they'll try to make the run bounce or whatever out here. When the cornerback reads run, he's got to get aggressive and fly up. And then these safeties will kind of fill in and kind of hang towards the back. All right, so that's a basic run fit. Now let's say we're sticking with the same front, same stunt, but now the offense wants to run the other way. All right, so now instead of going to the strong side, they both step weak side. The backers will still step with them. Now, both backers could have, they're still same gaps like this, or it could be a strong flow. So if you ever hear this term strong flow or hard flow, that means the offense's backfield movement is hard outside. So we're talking something like this, like an outside zone or a toss sweep. So if you get a hard flow, that requires these backers to move quicker. This backer's got to get aggressive, and typically this backer will be responsible for going outside. So the rule would be something like against soft flow or middle flow, right here, you would step up into your gap. If it was a hard flow, and he comes out here, like an outside zone again or toss sweep, this backer will have to scrape out here, which now leaves this gap uncovered. That's where this guy comes in. He comes across and fills that gap in case the ball cuts back in there. Now here's where the dilemma is against the hard flow. Typically gaps will be left open on the back side. There's two ways you can do this. Well, there's really only one way with this defensive setup because both safeties are deep. They can't really help us much in the run, against the run. So again, we got the corners forcing. Now, when the flow goes away, typically defenders on the backside are going to have what's called a container cutback responsibility. So I may cover the flat rather than running here. That's not doing much purpose because if he busts it, there's no one to chase him for the backside. So when you see run flow like this, the corner will slowly work his way across like that. Same thing with his backer. He'll step across, and he'll often be watching for that counter or reverse or cutback. And if there's nothing there, he'll sit. But once that ball's past the line of scrimmage, starts working his way back for the cutback downfield. All right? So that's kind of how a basic idea of how run fits work. We'll do another one. We'll do a 4-3 cover 4 next. All right, let's do a one back set here. And then we'll do a 4-3. Let's say the strength is being set to this side. All right. Got our backers. Actually, yeah, one more setup like that. It'll work like this more. And now let's play, again, I think I said cover 4. So in cover 4, remember cover 2, the cornerbacks are for us? Well, in cover 4, they're going to get way back. And while these safeties have deep quarters as well, they are the run support defenders. Because they're protected outside by these corners, that allows them to be more free to come upfield. So these are now the run support defenders. So now in this front, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gaps. And you have 7 defenders. That can create some issues here for the defense, especially if you're only playing a single gap defense, which for this example we're going to do. Remember again, so let's say we just do a middle flow kind of off here, like an inside zone. Single gapping. So now these linebackers have got to figure out what they're going to do here. Typically, again, soft flow or up the middle, step up and fill our gaps. Again, not a blitz. That's when they read run, they step up and attack. So now this depends on what the defense wants to do. They can either assign the backer to still take care of this and leave that bubble open, but chances are you don't want to do that. Because they can always bring a safety up if they need to. So he'll flow here. And then if the run bounces out to the side, these safeties fly upfield while the corners stay deep. And the corners stay deep still against the run in case they break. Or in case the run breaks deep into the secondary. So now if flow were to come the other way, all right, so if it came here, we'd fill accordingly. So it's important that the front seven know exactly what everyone's doing, because the linebackers have got to know where these linemen are going so they can know which gaps they have to fill. All right? And then there might be something like a hard flow run. So let's say it's like a toss sweep or an clear outside zone, where this is going way out here. All right, I'm flowing here. That safety's coming up. Now, they could teach it to still continue filling their gaps like this, or they could teach their backers to screw it and just get way the heck out here and fill accordingly, leaving this backside open. But what this happens typically, Michigan State does this in particular, is when they play their cover 4 and run flow goes hard that way, this safety actually has a run gap. He'll actually come up and fill this gap, while the defensive end and corner kind of play and wait for that counter or cutback or reverse coming back the other way. So now we'll do a 2-gap example. We'll show like a spread set for this one. Put a nose guard in. And we'll do like a 3-3 stack here. All right, so now if we're going to run a 2-gap, let's say we're going to run a 2-gap front or a 2-gap stunt with a nose guard. That means he's going to take care of both A gaps. We'll have these ends rush out here. And then these backs, again, have got to fill accordingly. So if they read flow this way, we fill. And then these guys would force up. Let's say they're using cover 3. When you play cover 3, with your 3 deep, typically they will not be your run support defenders, but your 2 flat defenders will be. Because, again, they're playing up towards the line of scrimmage. And then he would so then these 2 hybrid players would kind of be your force defenders. Flow goes the other way. We're going to step up, and then he's forcing on the backside, waiting for that reverse counter or cutback. All right. Now let's say we change the stunt up. This is with a 3-3 stack. This is especially fun to do. Lots of people love to bring wacky stunts with this type of defensive front. Let's say we want to keep that double gap responsibility, but now we want to pinch the defensive line. So now the run fits have got to change. We're still forcing off the edge with these 2 hybrids, but now these backers are going to fill out here. And then again, which would then allow which would hopefully free up this linebacker to be more free to the other side. So you can see how changing the stunt can help free up different defenders. If you pinch and try to compress that defensive line inside, you can hopefully free up that linebacker to flow out, your inside backers to flow outside. Or if you want your backers to attack inside more, you could stunt your defensive linemen out to let them occupy the middle more. And then, let's see. We'll do one more 2-gap example, but now we'll do it with an even front. So let's say we'll do something like a 4-4 or a 4-2 on this one. Go back to this set. And then cover 3 or cover 1, same thing. We're getting back with these defenders. They can't really help with the run force. So these outside backers are going to be your force defenders, typically your flat players. But we're 2-gapping now. All right, so each of these tackles is responsible for the A gap and B gap that they are over. And then again, our backers will fill accordingly. So if our ends are going here, all these are occupied. So if it's flow middle, The idea is for these linemen to help spill that play out and to get these backers to flow outside. Not always the case, though. So another thing you'll see two-gap teams taught is backers still need to be conscious. Let's say the flow goes this way and this tackle gets washed out here. This backer's got to be conscious of that gap. So let's say the flow goes out here. This tackle's probably working his way out, and this backer will have to come fill that gap. This backer comes out here. There's your force. And then if we change the stun of the ends to loop out, there's your fill for the backers. That's if the run goes up the middle. So if the run comes straight up the middle, that's where your backers might fill. Or it might look something like this. Flow goes this way. This backer's going to, it might also look like this. So backer gets out here. There's your force. This backer fills, and then this backer comes around and fills in on the back side. So that pretty much is a nice run through of some basic run fits. The whole idea is for every gap, somebody must occupy it. And no matter where the ball goes, a good defensive system will have a defender to take each of those gaps or each of those responsibilities. And again, you have run support defensive backs and deep coverage defensive backs. All right, your run support defenders, again, they could be linebackers too on the outside, are typically have more flat responsibilities or hook zone responsibilities or man responsibilities on the backs, which allows them to play more aggressive and up by the line. That is why your coverage is so important when determining these run fits. If you have any more questions about run fits or run defense, let me know, comment below. I'll get back to you.